What the? Hey, welcome to Fear Porn Propaganda. I'm Wilescraft, and I'm with.
Bmon or Anon.
So, what's on your mind today, sir?
Just chilling.
Awesome. Well, what is your research that you've been working on again?
You keep come back to 9/11, and I have no problem doing that. So we discussed 9/11 the last two episodes, and you're wondering what more information I've come across while exploring this whole concept.
Exactly.
It's like I've been looking at this for years, and information has been coming, and new theories have been expressed. I think it's really interesting to see how they've progressed over time because we have a small group of people within society, or actually, maybe it's even a large group of people who doubt the official story. It might even be safe to say that there are more people who believe in um, sorry, distraction. Um, the official story.
Yeah. Do tell.
Well, we have lots of people who have different ideas about it. Um, what are some that you've heard? I mean, a lot of the concerns seem to be about whether planes hit the towers. What exactly it was that hit the towers? Were there people in them? Were there pilots who flew them? Were there machines or computers that were instead these objects that flew into the two towers? So that's a new theory. Well, actually, not really. As far back as you go, there's questions on whether something else could have been behind the plane. Something else would have been flying it.
Let's see. The official story just kind of seemed like, well, okay, when I saw it live or whatever, like replaying over and over again, I ended up like feeling like I was watching a movie. Like I was putting what I seen in movies to what I was seeing live, and I was like, "This is a movie." You know what I mean? So then after going through that, I was like, "Okay, I need to dig deeper, and I wonder if anybody else is digging deeper at this time." So I started looking, and all I saw at first was people were reporting the news itself. They were just kind of like recording it and putting it on, and and then like maybe a week later there started to be like a little ideas of it was us not them kind of coming out, and I was like intrigued about that, and I was like, because that was my thoughts when it happened. It was like it was us not them. I was like, well, everything seemed to be like created, like I was going to see it in a movie in the future. I already kind of precogged that, if you will.
Okay, you got bonus 5 likes on that one, that last one. But uh, I'm talking about these no planes theories
Oh yeah, I've heard of
because that
this.
seems to be the most recent talked about thing within the community, at least the one that's reached the major news outlets. Something that's worth looking at and taking a closer eye to. The fact that we don't know um, from the wreckage whether those planes were what hit the towers. There really isn't any left, and evidence for that is also gone. Who was behind it? And there must be some sort of comprehensive study that the government has done that tells you who they think is behind it and the type of people who could have possibly funded it, but the extent of that investigation, we don't really know. And it would be nice to know where the government may have left off last on this particular uh, subject that concerns us all.
Agreed.
So, no planes. We don't know what hit the fucking Pentagon. Sorry for cursing, but um, it's like,
Oh, so okay. So what you're talking about is like the holographic theory.
yes, I want to talk about things like that because it's fun, and so many different ideas have come and like tried to explain what it could be that we don't have like a clear, concise an agreement like what the majority of us believe. Um, but go ahead.
Oh,
What are you?
holographic theory has to do with essentially there's a beam coming from somewhere split into like three and then comes back into itself, but you're only able to see one angle. And that angle is what creates the holographic kind of illusion, if you will.
Mhm.
So, the easiest way to perceive this is taking a mirror and turning it a 45-degree angle in front of you, where it's pointed like where you can see the floor in a sense. And then you put something on the floor and you look in the mirror and you'll see it right in front of you. You'll see like what's on the floor right in front of you as if you could touch it.
Yeah.
So you take that idea and put a computer in it, and then you have the holographic like theory.
Mhm.
Because it's about using that perception, that illusion, and wrapping it around your whole frequency everywhere you look, every direction.
Yeah, and that's one of the really intriguing theories behind it, and I think it's kind of cool to think about. What do you have?
Oh, but what's the beam, right? What's the beam of light? It's you.
Okay, so our brains with the holographic.
Imaging thing, and then it
Yeah,
splits and it comes back, and you're the angle looking every direction. The
exactly.
mirror's in front of you,
And it's
and it's
interesting to
also
think
in
of.
your eyes.
Mhm. I mean, we all have different like perceptions of the world, and one thing that we can come together on are visual representations of the world looks like. And so when TV shows us pictures of what we see are planes flying into the building, we all believe it. And it's easier for folks to believe that someone could have taken it upon themselves to take and hijack those planes, fly them through secure US airspace for however many hours it was before they finally flew into the building. And the government was either unwilling or unable to launch a, a sufficient strike force or sorry, I don't know how to phrase it, but a response. The way that the government responded during the crisis was with ineptitude. And even after the crisis, uh, what we had was another kind of emergence in society or within US society where the government would further exemplify um, its inability to um, you know, tolerate a free and open society
So you're
that
talking
followed
about
the
how the
rules of law.
Patriot Act got formed?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So you're talking about how the Patriot Act got formed?
Yeah, man, it's amazing how we responded to this particular crisis. But we have to ask ourselves, why did we start doing this in the first place? It seemed like the event itself was used as a justification to go to war. And everyone said this, you've heard people say it before, that it was just used to either go into Iraq because we didn't like Saddam or we wanted his oil or they were trying to build weapons of mass destruction, it didn't matter. There was a conscious effort by a small group of people who were in control of the government at the time to use these particular events to further this diabolical agenda. And I think an event like that would actually be cause for concern for most people, especially if you do consider yourself a patriot. I mean, we all have our issues or we all have our own problems, but the idea behind this civilized experiment that we have, supposed to be anyway, democracy, it really is supposed to matter what your opinion what your opinion is.
Yeah, exactly.
So why not try to encourage more investigation into this 9/11 event? Because the holographic theory is only one. There's another one. I'm sure we could link it to Saturn if we really wanted to. We could just take it all the way down the rabbit hole,
Oh yeah, you totally could.
or we could.
You need to reference sources though.
Yeah, I know.
And
we could do that if we wanted to do another show, but
so what does the 9/11 stuff lead? Does it lead to Saturn in your perception?
it leads to a large societal fabrication, propaganda, a false flag, if you will. That's what people call it, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's a false flag, or a hoax.
Or a hoax, yeah.
You could call it what you will.
It depends. Like if it's a false flag, essentially, if they're blaming it on somebody else.
Yeah.
It's a hoax if they are implementing a situation and nothing actually happened. It was all kind of pre-played and screened out and analyzed ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call that in when you're in court and you actually like they know that you did something and you know what you did ahead of time. It's not like
premeditated.
What?
Premeditated?
That's it. Yes, premeditated. It's like a premeditated situation. That would be a hoax.
Yeah, it would.
A false flag could technically be a premeditated situation too, but with more like a implementation of death involved, where the other one doesn't actually have any death. The hoax, there's no death, but sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Kill people, or we don't really know if they kill people, but they say they kill people. They say that there's people that died, and that is a hoax in other people's perceptions.
Yeah. And other folks have come out and said that they've found evidence that people who are supposed to be on the plane were actually still alive.
Yeah.
I sourced that at this very moment, but I have heard it.
Well, I mean, it's just something somebody said. We can only take that as like what's that called, someone's opinion, basically, at that point, unless you source it. You need to source it, research it, and then it becomes your opinion mixed in with their opinion. If you get like 3 sources leading to the same thing, makes it more real. Depending on, like, unless they're informants, all those sources, then you're going towards disinformation.
Yeah.
So you have to be keen on what you're looking for and keep like an eye on a ball in this sense, because otherwise you're not going to continue on the same path. You're going to sway away and you might lead to disinformation.
That's an important thing to consider whenever you're doing research into something.
Well, anyway, so what else is you want to talk about at this moment?
Oh yeah, we can just keep going on the whole how people are trying to explain what could possibly happen. Another theory is that the planes flew over a particular airport or air base. It was like a military air base, and they lost contact with the planes during that time. And a theory is that they could have switched the planes. They could have launched these other planes from a site within the United States, from a military base, and by remote control flew them into a tower or twin towers.
Yeah,
And
totally.
theoretically, the Pentagon too, but plain evidence in that particular scenario is quite questionable as well. So we are continually asking what exactly did fly into the towers. I think, like my personal, like my best guess on how this could have been a hoax, and it managed to go forward anyway, was that like this theory that something else flew them, like a remote control, and maybe it was equipped with military grade equipment, like thermite possibly. Although I think that the buildings were pre, what do you call it when you set it up for something, like they'd already done the work to bring the towers down. They severed particular
Oh,
structural support
I've
beams
come
on
across that
particular
research.
levels because there were, like, and this is hearsay, but there were reports that there was late night heavy work going on in the towers, and whether it was supposed to be asbestos abatement or what. Um, by people's accounts of it, it sounds incredibly suspicious that this was happening. So I think that if the Twin Towers fell, and we were kind of asking ourselves, how is it that they were able to do that? We can look at another example of a building that fell that day, which was World Trade Center 7.
Yeah, that's true. And that had no planes hit it in the first
Yeah.
place. So it's like maybe they did plan to have some sort of film showing the plane hitting that one, and it just didn't work.
Oh. Um, hey, that's an interesting theory.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
I
you,
just threw that out there.
yeah,
I have nothing to go on there, but that would go along with the no planes theory.
yeah. I think that World Trade Center 7 is the best example of how um, those buildings were set to explode that day, because it had only had some fires within it. And the way that they've tried to explain the structural collapse was by saying that a particular support beam was weakened during the fire, which caused it to break or bend, or I guess they would say that it stopped giving them support.
Right.
And uh, then it systematically fell based on that one particular failure. But structural engineers, and there are a lot of architects who argue against this theory, um, cite many other factors that are important to consider when you're talking about 9/11, and that is like just the general rules of physics, the whole reaction. Um,
Problem reaction solution.
um,
Or
no,
are you
but that,
talking about actual physics? That
yeah,
would be like um, equal and opposite reaction.
yeah, thank you. So I'm not a physicist and I'm not a structural engineer, but I am a normal person who does have questions about 9/11. And from what evidence I have seen, I am not fully convinced that the official story is what happened that day. Um, and I'm not alone. I think that there are probably millions of us in this country. I think there's a certain percentage among a particular age group that question 9/11, and I think like it's 50-50. It's like
Yeah, I could agree with that.
it's like
There, there's definitely, well, I mean, it seems that it depends on people's research. Like, usually it will go back to that if people go back in past. If they keep on the like early on situations because there's so many, then they might get, caught up in one of those and continue. You know what I mean? Like, if you focus on Sandy Hook, for instance, you'll get like stuck on it for a while, unless you get bored.
yeah. So the latest news that came out, I guess, if you look up 9/11 theories, is that there's this ex-CIA pilot who gives testimony that no planes hit the towers. And this has led to all kinds of other speculations as well. And it sort of makes us think about the stuff that we've already heard, we've already talked about,
Exactly.
like the holographic theory, um, the one that there were no people on the planes, and the other that like they were pre-rigged to fall, and then that the government either let it happen or they helped, um, like they aided, like helped it along.
Well, there
Have you seen
was
that?
reports of people that said that they actually had to move from one area that they were working to another area, so there could be some maintenance going on 2 weeks before that happened. And that was in the same area that the supposed planes hit. So my theory on that would be that those maintenance people were painting the walls with the substance that was the second substance needed for thermite to exist.
Yeah, we don't know how the thermite got there, and we don't know that there actually was thermite, but we have visual evidence from taken from news sources of molten steel pouring out of the building, and there's no real explanation for why we're seeing that. I mean, um, officially they might say, "Oh, that's like, some flammable liquid that ignited and was in the building." But when you look at it, it looks like molten metal. And then you hear reports, like official reports, that when they were removing the debris from 9/11, the ground zero, there were hot spots. I mean, like there was molten steel. It was flowing like a river.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you kind of ask yourself, like, what temperatures did these explosions really reach? And what could have caused this? They say that there were explosions in the basement. How would they get explosions from the basement? Um, and reports that the gold was removed from the vaults in the basement of the Twin Towers. These are all really important like questions that are generated, and we don't have answers for.
Right, that's what I talk about, the holes in the story. And that's what makes us think that there's something faulty about it. Like, goes back to the movie thing. Like, did they just create that whole situation in order to have the Patriot Act and then shuffle it under the rug with the actual movie that came out like
Yeah,
and that like a couple years later?
I think that's exactly what happened, and that's what Noam Chomsky thinks too. I mean, he's dispelled some of the 9/11 theories, but he will. I mean, his main point is the fact that the government used this event to perpetuate these like travesties upon our freedoms that have been going on and building up over the past century. I mean, evidence. I mean, examples of this are like the Federal Reserve being created.
Yeah, let's talk about that. How the Federal Reserve was that? What do you know anything about that? Have you done any research on that?
Um, a little bit.
Okay, well, go ahead and give me what you got.
Well, I don't have time for that actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Well,
five
then
minutes
go ahead
over.
and continue where you were.
Oh,
You stopped at the Federal Reserve.
oh yeah, examples of things that have happened in society that have shown us just how willing our leaders are, our government is, and certain leaders of the time want to control us. And the Federal Reserve was one of them. Usually, going to war is like the big one, and they do that one all the time, um, like in Vietnam. And then it's another good example. Oh, Noam Chomsky talks about it all the time, how the labor movement was dismantled and how that went down.
Yeah, and you can look up Noam Chomsky and all of his quotes and what he.
Yeah, you could look up a lot of great labor movement and liberal writers. There's some good stuff in there, some good thoughts. Just thinkers, philosophers like you and I. Um, and let's see.
Well, for me, that's when the New World Order research truly began, because before that, I was a like B system researcher.
Oh yeah, it totally leads up to the New World Order thing, which is just another conspiracy theory, and it's a very popular one. In fact, you can see it in all forms of media. You can see it on like hip hop videos and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
We got some good stuff on our page coming up, and we're gonna try to like put together some videos about how um, where the symbolism is in particular videos, and I think you can only show like a certain seconds before you infringe on their copyright or something like that.
Yeah, there's ways around it. Like you could change color schemes. You can slow down movements. You can speed up movements. You can
Yeah,
speed up the sound.
nice.
You can take the sound off completely.
All right.
So, like, I think that's the best way to do it is take off the sound and then you have just the visuals.
Yeah.
Because I've found that other researchers that use this production is impactful. I find that I'm able to like literally see what's going on visually instead of being kind of hypnotized by the music as I'm watching what's going on. I mean, you could put other music there if you want, but I mean, I'm saying that just by itself, when the music mixes with the visuals, I think that's how they hypnotize you,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
you don't see the symbolism. You just get affected by it.
Yeah, it's like a numbing. It's like a numbing thing.
Well, what kind of videos do you research? How do you come across this?
Well, I listen to like I don't know. I used to listen to like 8 hours of music a day, but lately I haven't had time to do that much. So I just find stuff on YouTube or like Pandora or something.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand, how do you lead to the finding the symbolism behind it, the visuals.
Oh, how do I recognize them?
Yeah,
Oh, because of all of the like esoteric symbolism research I've done. I've like really enjoyed delving into it. It's been fun. And once you do it, then you can look into the symbolism everywhere, like pretty much everywhere you go, and you'll just be like, oh, okay, you know, this harkens back to some other like old age idea, and a lot of the symbol we have leads back to ancient civilizations. And I love to consider where our civilization has come and kind of like put together the story of our people, how we've lived on the planet, how we've moved, the different beliefs that we've had over time, and like the evolution, if you will, if that word doesn't offend you.
right.
um, but uh, cultural um, clashes, like the effects that different cultures have had on each other. Um, those are really interesting.
Why does that interest you?
Why? Because we have so many problems today, and when you look at the story behind like monotheism, and you look at the three great monotheistic beliefs, in the world, they all worship the same God. They worship one God, and yet we have all these problems. The Muslims hate the Jews. The Jews don't really like Christians unless like they're completely on their side or they've got their backs or whatever, because they are the chosen people after all. Abraham was the one who wrote the Torah, and then in Islam they believe in the five great prophets, and one of them was Abraham, and the other one was Noah, and then
Right, and those people lived for a long time.
I was trying to do it in historical order.
Go ahead.
Noah, Moses, and then Jesus, and then Muhammad. I think that's five. Anyway,
Well, the
and
actual Christian people listening will probably correct you.
yeah, if I missed one, cool, let me know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting that we have this origin that we share between the Tigris and the Euphrates or something like that, where this religion came from. Some people believe that it, um, the original Semitic people were originally taught by the Brahmins in India, because India has the older of the religions of the world. And it would be safe to say that all religions are linked in some way or another, and that even though the monotheistic seem to share the most in common, they seem to have, uh, the most conflict with each other as far as these cultures clash. I mean, we're at war with each other. For however many thousand years, the Jews were held captive as slaves and then persecuted in other ways throughout history. There was a great war that pretty much, oops,
Yeah. Oh,
there was
you're
a
fine.
war
Keep
that
going.
annihilated or nearly annihilated the Jewish people. We're getting some feedback problems over here.
No, you're fine. It's just your headphones.
Oh, okay. So anyway, it's interesting to kind of like ask yourself, why do we have these problems? Why are we doing these things to each other? Why would we? The religion and at least the message of the people, the prophets behind it, they all preach a kind of harmony or an equilibrium among people. But we're never going to have that. It's pretty obvious. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that, because then I put it out in the world and then I make it impossible for it to happen, when in all,
It's like quantum at that point.
yeah, right. So who's to say in some other dimension of reality it hasn't happened? But we have, in this dimension, we have an equilibrium that is trying to be formed, that belongs to the corporations and doesn't really consider us. We are an afterthought. The forethought is the projections, how much they're going to make in the bottom line. And in the dimension we live in, we find ourselves like a slave to this system, when we were supposed to have like democracy, and we were supposed to have peace, but we generate so many problems for ourselves that it like all gets out of hand. So the thing that leaders try to do, and governments, they try to manage this chaos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and chaos is about like order, because essentially things get messed up so they can fix them.
Yeah.
That's like Ordab KO, which is their motto, the cult's motto.
Yeah. That whole idea of what was it?
Ordab KO. It's order out of chaos.
Right. The whole idea of order or chaos goes back to like ancient.
Right, it's the number 5. Represents 5, like 23.
Yeah, there are esoterics teachings behind that, or not teachings.
If you want to look into any of that, look up like Robert Anton Wilson. He talks all about that stuff.
Cool. Well, I think it's really cool that we can talk about this stuff. We talked about 9/11. We talked about the new news about the CIA ex-CIA pilot who gave testimony that no planes hit the towers.
Yeah.
Hey, it's something worth consider. What the fuck did hit him? We want to know.
Have you heard of scalar weaponry?
Scalar?
No, scalar, like SCALAR.
No.
That's some sort of foreign technology that supposedly all of our
Is it alien?
governments globally have.
Is it alien?
Directed weaponry and obliteration. It's like annihilation, but from a particle level. So say if they did use it on the towers as scalar, then it would have been taken apart by particles inside of their structure. Nice, and that would let it fall.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up. I forgot about that. I know that we were talking about something like that before. But
well, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to bring up before you take off, there was last night I was on another pod, and it was interesting because there was a person that claimed to be a Freemason coming on who said he was a 3rd degree, but had this whole argument with another person on the pod about the whether or not a blood oath that he had to take a blood oath, and he was like, no, it wasn't a blood oath, but I mean, it was literally that death oath that we all know about when you do the research on Freemasonry.
Oh, so that's what they do to initiate you? They do a blood oath?
No, they do a death oath.
A death oath?
Yeah.
What? Why would you do such a thing?
You know, like in other words,
like
you're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna kill you in in all of these like descriptive ways if you tell all that you know, what we call secrets.
And so how many murders have there been that have been linked back to these people?
There has been, if you do the research, it goes back, I believe, to London, associated with a street sign. There was, I don't remember the name, but it was names that associated with the Freemasons' philosophy. Okay. I know that. I remember it had to do with their connection. But the weird thing was throughout the program, he ended up being kind of forced out by the movement. It's like they all teamed up because of him not answering questions and in a certain way. Like, in other words, if I ask you a question, you are an honest person, you just answer the question, right? You don't go around it and ask me questions. You know what I'm saying? That was what he was doing. It was kind of weird. And it felt like a form of infiltration into our movement. You see what I'm saying? So it was interesting, and I wanted to bring it up before you took off because I wanted to see what your take would be on it.
Yeah, I wonder what I would say. I don't know. I once told a Freemason that I thought that they were the enemy of humanity.
That's funny.
And then I thought about it, and I was like, I don't really know that, but I just felt like saying it because I have such a disdain for secret societies and like secret oaths and things like that. I'm right along lines with JFK on that, and he died. They shot his ass. So he might have been a Freemason, and he might have betrayed some of their principles, because I mean, there are certain criteria you have to even be considered to be president. One of them, which is very interesting, is that you have to support Israel. If it gets out that you don't support Israel, you are very likely not to wind up the president of the United States. They'll try to move you out. It's like a political move.
Right.
And it's been going on. You can observe it over like the decades. You know, maybe I have an example. Um, Actually, no, because the people who come out against, like they don't support Israel, are so few and far between that like you don't really have it. Um, so anyway,
Why you bring that up?
just as a final thought, really,
Okay.
um, I had gotta go.
All right.
But
Well,
it would have
thanks.
been cool to like chill, have like an 8 hour, maybe
Right.
12, 14 hour
But you got your job to do.
conversation. And we would have like some beers.
We are
We would
all
just chill.
slaves.
And then I'd get really drunk and I'd fucking yell at some guy. But I mean, I don't know what people are doing behind the closed doors. I don't really care.
All right. With that,
Just as long as you're not plotting to kill me or take out my family or, you know, bring down society as we know it. Those people are our enemies. So anybody who would support that, I mean, we all do our part in
right.
civilization because a lot of what is happening is part of the expression. And there are different expressions within humanity that are being expressed at one given moment. I mean, think about all the people in the world and all the things going on and happening at this very moment, things that are going to fuck up the future,
Right.
and things we might want to be aware of. If we can track down on systemic levels abuses of corruption, I think we might have a pretty good chance, a pretty good fighting chance to maintain a civilization that is free and open. Otherwise, we're going to get on this slippery slope argument about how you know, the more rights we're free and willing to give away, the more that they will take. You know, give them an inch, they'll take a mile, or something like that.
Well, they
And
do seem to take rights away with every event that kind of occurs. Whether or not it's in a location, it seems to affect more and more people each event
yeah,
as they happen. The rights associate like with one something or with one rights being like led to another rights like, and eventually we're not going to have any rights.
right. You look at the cyborg information about how like you know, weaponized machines are going to get really sophisticated. And if you think about the potential of that, you really don't stand a chance. I mean, we had The Matrix. It was a
Yeah.
good movie. I
Well, that's
enjoyed the
like a
first one. It was really good.
philosophy that goes back to Allegory of the Cave by Plato. That's what that was really
Yeah,
portraying.
and that's the holographic experience comes into play too when we don't all see the exact same
This
thing.
kind of brings us back full circle.
Yeah, I mean, people have visions, and that's really what I mean. People who are spiritual had visions all the time. If you go back in history, somebody saw an angel or they spoke to spirits of the past, and these are the kind of people that we're listening to, and these are the kind of people that we are building our beliefs upon.
Right.
Yeah, and so if I, you know, happen to see something in the world, I'm gonna probably do something about it, and that's just how I would respond. Now, if if um, if people knew that, they could either help that along or put it down. But you can't really do that, so you have to kind of like just go along in an even keel kind of way and not really speak your mind about things.
Right.
And you see a lot of really respectable people who have beliefs or questions that are contrary to what the mainstream is telling them. Then like you get like looked down on sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, you're stupid or something. That's kind of the worst thing you could do.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like
it's like
your belief doesn't matter.
demonizing a person,
Exactly. I
making
think
them lower than
people's
you,
what?
making them lower than you.
Exactly. And that is the problem where we all have the same belief that we're better than everyone else, demonizing them. And in a way, raise ourselves up, but we put everybody else down. It's like, don't you see the problem with that? Like
Yeah, we're all equals. We're all people. We're all human beings, right?
yeah, but you're not even like you're doing it to other people. Like it's an
Exactly. That's the
expression,
problem.
and you create evil in other people when you create that expression. But what really happens is you create the evil in yourself, and so the things you fear and the things that you want to fight against because of what you're afraid of or what you're ignorant of, then you lead yourself and others down this path of like death. And I think the death oath is kind of something you probably want to steer clear of. So I can't really say that I respect a whole lot of people.
Has to do with sacrifice perception. Like, do you want to sacrifice yourself for a higher purpose? And you don't even know what that purpose is
Yeah,
necessarily.
and that's stupid for another reason too, because if you are Christian, you think you'd already believe that somebody did that. Somebody already did the ultimate sacrifice. So you don't have to be the savior. You don't have to be, um, a martyr,
Yeah,
right? I
that's right.
mean, those are prophetic messages. You don't need to do that. God said that. It's unnecessary. You don't need to be a martyr. And just like you don't need to kill people. And those are other messages that you can infer from religious beliefs. So the problem that we have is it's all being perverted and
But I think that's
coerced.
more like common sense.
Yeah, it is
You
common sense.
just shouldn't kill people
You'd
in
think.
general. I don't think that the laws should like take those over and then like make people die based on situations. You understand? Like if you go to like death row because of a situation, that's going to kill you because of the law.
Yeah. And that's why it's so disturbing because what you see happening as another expression is that these group of people have to then agree that a certain other smaller group of people should die. And
Yeah,
so they're like, shit, we have these planes and these bombs, and like, who can we really target today? They wind up blowing up all kinds of people, like all different people. It's not just like, I mean, weaponry isn't so advanced now that they could just go and kill anybody who had a terrorist plot or something like that going on. Um, and then um, just sort of, how would you put it? Get away with it
right.
because they're
And
not
of
beholden to
course they're
anyone
not going
else.
to get away with it if it was a real event.
Yeah, but people really die, and um, sometimes it's really tragic,
Well, you're not
especially.
technically an event skeptic, right?
Um,
I mean, I am. I have to be
I thought you
like
didn't like the
proven an
labeling.
event in order for it to be real.
You have to prove that it's real.
I have to have it proven to me,
Yeah,
whether I research it myself or someone presents it to me.
I pretty much maintain the idea or entertain the narrative that I don't really know anything.
Yeah,
I
me
just let it
too.
go. I'm just like observing, and I'll have my
I
beliefs.
like that perspective. I'm very at one with you on that.
Yeah, I feel like I'll have my beliefs, and you can have your beliefs, and I'll be okay with that. And
Yeah,
if you're okay with me thinking what I want to believe, and maybe it's I believe that you're a fucked up criminal if you're aiding certain people, and if that's what's happening and criminal events are going on, you're just as bad as them.
right.
Like you have become an enemy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like if you work at Starbucks or if you fucking work in an office or maybe you work for the government or the military or whatever. Maybe your job is
You're like a
you
cog
fill
in the
up the
wheel in a
gas
sense,
tank.
but you don't really know what that wheel where that
Yeah,
wheel's going
everybody.
or what that's connected to.
Yeah, because people are working behind the scenes to make other events transpire. And that's the real question. Who are these people? Um, then secret society myths come into play, or not myths because they're real. They're more um, like what do you call it? Like stories.
Yeah, I guess stories. You know, like from people that said to used to be like former. You know, you get information from the former ones that don't. like want to be in it anymore, and that kind of thing. Like that happened with Scientology, but those former people in Scientology that like got out of Scientology get sued.
Hmm.
So it's a whole different experience. Although it all seems to be connected to the Saturn cult, like on the big picture. If you pan back and you see the bigger picture, all these things connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And it's like when you go pan back further and further, you get a picture of Saturn. that
That's
that's my
crazy, dude.
perception on it so
Cool.
far.
Well, it's been a good show. It's
Yeah.
been fun.
All right.
We had a good talk. We brought up some cool stuff, and I hope to do it again sometime.
All right then. Well, you have a good day, and this is us signing off. So thanks for joining us. We'll like try to get you on next time. We don't know actually how to do that, but if you want to leave some information in the chat or on the side or in our channel like discussion area, that'll let us know so the next show we can actually like invite people on.
Yeah, check
Thank
out the
you.
new stuff.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, do your research.